A diplomat's gamble. The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered under cold, sterile lights, its towering arches lined with intricate carvings depicting the histories of its most ancient member species. Aiden Cross, the human diplomat, strode forward across the polished metallic floor, his boots echoing in the cavernous space. At the far end of the hall, the council members sat on floating thrones arranged in a semicircle, each illuminated by their own unique aura. Humanity's presence here was rare, and Aiden knew he was being watched as a curiosity rather than an equal. His dark suit, tailored to a precise balance of professionalism and combat readiness, bore the emblem of Earth, a symbol of pride he carried with quiet dignity. He was here to secure a treaty, one that could safeguard humanity's fragile place among the stars. The weight of condescension. The council chamber's silence was broken by the voice of Shar, an alien diplomat from the Jar species. Her emerald skin shimmered under the lights, and her voice carried an unmissable undertone of arrogance. "Mr. Cross, your presence is noted. I trust humanity understands the privilege of addressing this council." Aiden offered a curt nod, suppressing the irritation that flared in his chest. "Humanity understands the stakes," he replied, his tone calm but firm. "We come in good faith, seeking a partnership that benefits all." Before Shar could respond, a booming voice cut across the hall. A partnership. The speaker, Zorro, was a hulking reptilian figure with bronze scales that gleamed like molten metal. His yellow eyes locked onto Aiden, filled with disdain. "You humans overstep. Your kind has barely scratched the surface of the stars, and now you demand a seat at this table." Zorro's heavy steps echoed as he advanced toward Aiden. "We should have eradicated your species when we had the chance." A moment of tension. Aiden stood his ground, his expression unchanging. His hand instinctively brushed the concealed hilt of his energy blade, hidden beneath his coat, a weapon not just of defense, but of quiet reassurance. He met Zorro's glare with unflinching resolve. "Careful, Zorro," Aiden said, his voice low and steady. "Underestimating humanity has proven costly for others before you." The chamber fell silent, the tension thick enough to taste. Zorro's jaw tightened, his claws twitching at his sides, but before he could respond, Cher interjected. "Enough," she snapped, her voice cutting through the charged atmosphere. "We are here to discuss terms, not trade threats." Aiden inclined his head slightly, a gesture of deference that concealed his simmering frustration. He had faced worse than Zorro's bluster before, but he knew the real danger wasn't in words. It was in what the council might be planning behind the scenes. The diplomatic dance. The discussions dragged on, a cacophony of alien voices arguing over the terms of the proposed treaty. Aiden maintained his focus, his mind turning over every word, every gesture, looking for the subtle clues that would reveal the council's true intentions. Humanity's survival depended on his ability to navigate this web of arrogance and deceit, but something felt off. The air in the chamber seemed heavier, a subtle distortion that pricked at the edges of Aiden's awareness. His pulse quickened, and his senses sharpened, a reflex honed through years of training long before his role as a diplomat. Something was wrong. He glanced around the chamber, noting the faint hum of energy that had begun to permeate the air. It was a sound most wouldn't notice, but Aiden's heightened instincts picked it up immediately. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a setup. The trap springs. Before Aiden could act, the distortion in the air coalesced into something tangible. A loud crack echoed through the chamber, followed by a burst of blinding light. The floor beneath Aiden's feet buckled, and he was thrown backward as an explosion ripped through the hall. Debris rained down from the vaulted ceiling, and the council members' floating thrones wavered in the shockwave. Aiden's instincts took over. As he hit the ground, he rolled to his feet, summoning a shimmering energy shield from the hidden device on his wrist. The barrier deflected falling debris and the force of a secondary explosion, protecting him from harm. Around him, the chamber descended into chaos. Council members shouted in confusion, their guards scrambling to form defensive lines. Through the smoke and rubble, Aiden saw Zero's massive form advancing, his eyes blazing with rage. "This is where your arrogance ends, human," Zero growled, raising the serrated blade. "You should never have come here." A glimpse of power. Aiden's hand went to the hilt of his energy blade. He drew it in one smooth motion, the weapon igniting with a soft hum. Its blade shimmered with an otherworldly light, a relic of a time long forgotten. A time when titans roamed the stars. "You've made a mistake, Zoro," Aiden said, his voice calm but laced with quiet menace. "You didn't just attack a diplomat. You provoked something you can't control." Zoro lunged, his blade striking with brutal force, but Aiden moved with a speed and precision that defied human limitations. He sidestepped the attack, his own blade flashing in a counterstrike that sent sparks flying. The council guards hesitated, unsure whether to intervene in a battle that had taken on an almost mythic intensity. The Forgotten Titan. As the battle raged, fragments of Aiden's past came rushing back. He wasn't just a diplomat. He was the last of the Titans, a near-extinct lineage of superhuman beings created in humanity's darkest hour. For decades, he had hidden his true nature, using his skills to protect Earth through diplomacy rather than violence. But now, the Council had forced his hand. With a burst of energy, Aiden disarmed Zoro, sending the reptilian warrior sprawling to the ground. The chamber fell silent, the remaining council members staring in shock as Aiden lowered his blade, its light fading, but the aura of power around him unmistakable. "You wanted to see humanity's strength," Aiden said, his voice resonating through the hall. "Now you have. A fateful decision." The council's guards began to close in, their weapons drawn, but Aiden raised a hand, the air around him shimmering with latent energy. "Enough," he said. "This doesn't have to end in more bloodshed." Shar, still seated in her floating throne, stared at him with wide eyes. "What are you?" she whispered. Aiden met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "The last of something you should have never forgotten." Without another word, Aiden turned and strode toward the chamber's exit. The guards hesitated, glancing at each other, unsure whether to stop him. None dared move. As Aiden disappeared into the shadows, one thing was clear: the Galactic Council had underestimated humanity and its forgotten Titan. The Titan Awakens. The Galactic Council chamber lay in ruins, smoke curling upward from the shattered architecture and scorched walls. The once pristine hall, a symbol of interstellar unity, now bore the scars of treachery. The surviving council members huddled behind their guards, their arrogance replaced by unease. They had hoped to silence the human diplomat, but they had awakened something far more dangerous. Aiden Cross moved with measured purpose through the chaos, his energy blade still glowing faintly in his hand. His expression was unreadable, but his every movement exuded an aura of quiet power. The council's betrayal had forced his hand, and now the truth of his identity was no longer a secret. Pursued through the halls. The sound of armored boots echoed through the corridors as Zeran enforcers pursued Aiden. Their orders were clear: capture or eliminate the human before he could escape. But Aiden wasn't just fleeing, he was calculating. As he moved through the labyrinthine halls of the Council's capital, his mind raced. The explosion had been deliberate, a coordinated effort to eliminate him and send a message to humanity. But who had ordered it? And why now? These questions burned in his mind as he evaded his pursuers. A group of Zeron guards rounded a corner, their plasma rifles raised. Aiden didn't hesitate. With a flick of his wrist, his energy blade hummed to life, deflecting their first volley of shots. He surged forward, his movements a blur, dispatching the guards with precise, efficient strikes. The corridor fell silent again, save for the faint hum of his blade. Flashes of the past. As he navigated the twisting corridors, fragments of memory surfaced, unbidden. Aiden remembered the days when he wasn't just a diplomat but a soldier, a titan. Created during humanity's darkest hour, The Titans were engineered to defend Earth against overwhelming alien threats. They were faster, stronger, and more resilient than ordinary humans, their bodies and minds enhanced to near superhuman levels. But their creation came at a cost. The Titans were feared as much as they were revered, their existence a reminder of humanity's capacity for both greatness and destruction. When the wars ended, the Titans were deemed too dangerous to exist. Most were destroyed, and those who survived disappeared into the shadows. Aiden had chosen a different path. He became a diplomat, channeling his abilities into securing humanity's place among the stars. For years, he had hidden his true nature, using diplomacy as his weapon. But now, that facade was shattered. A cornered Titan. The pursuit grew fiercer as Aiden neared the Council complex's outer perimeter. The enforcers had regrouped, their numbers bolstered by reinforcements. Aiden found himself cornered in a sprawling atrium, surrounded by towering statues of the galaxy's most revered leaders. The leader of the enforcers, a hulking Korak with 4 arms and a serrated staff, stepped forward. His voice boomed through the chamber. "Surrender, human. You've caused enough damage. The Council demands your capture." Aiden tightened his grip on his energy blade, his gray eyes scanning the room. He could feel the tension in the air, the hesitation in the guards' movements. They feared him, and they had every reason to. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Aiden said, his voice calm but edged with warning. "Walk away while you still can." The Korak sneered. "You think we're afraid of you. You're alone, outnumbered, and surrounded." Aiden's lips curved into a faint smile. "Then you've already lost." The power unleashed. The Korak charged, his staff crackling with energy. But Aiden was faster. He moved with a speed and grace that defied logic, his energy blade meeting the Korak's weapon in a clash that sent sparks flying. The guards opened fire, their plasma bolts lighting up the atrium, but Aiden's reflexes were unmatched. He weaved through the onslaught, deflecting shots and disarming his attackers with precision. The battle was a blur of motion and light, a testament to Aiden's Titan heritage. The statues around them crumbled under the force of stray blasts, the atrium transforming into a battlefield. One by one, the enforcers fell, until only the Korak remained. Panting, the Korak stumbled back, his confidence shattered. Aiden stood before him, his blade raised, but his expression calm. "Go," he said. "Tell the Council what happens when they betray humanity." The Korak hesitated, then dropped his weapon and fled, leaving Aiden alone in the wreckage. Escape from the Council complex. With the enforcers routed, Aiden continued toward the complex's outer perimeter. His every step was calculated, his senses heightened as he anticipated further resistance. But as he approached the final exit, he encountered a familiar face. Shar stood in his path, her emerald skin glistening under the flickering lights. She held no weapon, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Aiden," she said, her voice softer than before. "You've made your point, but this isn't the way." Aiden regarded her coldly. "You knew about the trap, didn't you?" Shar's gaze faltered. "I suspected, but it wasn't my decision." "Then you're complicit," Aiden said, his voice sharp, "and you'll answer for it." Shar stepped aside, her expression pained. "You're right, but not here. Not now." Aiden paused, studying her for a moment before continuing past her. He didn't trust her, but he had bigger concerns. He needed to escape, and he needed to warn humanity. The Council's fear. As Aiden vanished into the shadows, the surviving Council members convened in a secure chamber, their usual arrogance replaced by fear. Zaro, nursing his wounds, slammed his fist on the table. "That human is a threat to all of us. We should have eliminated him when we had the chance." Shar, now seated among them, spoke calmly. "You didn't just provoke a diplomat. You provoked a Titan." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. The Titans were thought to be extinct, their power a distant memory. But now, the Council realized they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. "What do we do?" one of the members asked, their voice trembling. Shar's gaze hardened. "We prepare, because he's not just fighting for humanity. He's fighting for everything the Titans stood for." A new mission. As Iden slipped onto a stolen transport ship, his mind raced with the events that had unfolded. The Council's betrayal wasn't just an attack on him. It was an attack on humanity. And it wouldn't stop here. Sitting in the cockpit, Aiden activated a secure channel, his message beaming across the void to Earth's hidden strongholds. "This is Aiden Cross. The Council has declared war on humanity. Prepare for retaliation." As the ship's engines roared to life, Aiden's resolve hardened. He had spent years hiding his true nature, choosing diplomacy over violence. But now, the time for hiding was over. The Council had forced his hand, and they would soon learn what it meant to face a Titan. Humanity's hidden strength. The stolen transport ship broke free from the gravitational pull of the Council's capital world, plunging into the cold expanse of space. Aiden Cross sat in the cockpit, his expression a mask of determination. The Council had betrayed him, tried to erase him, but they had only ignited the spark of something far greater. Now, it was time to fan that spark into a flame. The secure channel hummed with static before a familiar voice broke through. "Aiden, is that you?" It was Commander Tessa Grayson, one of humanity's most trusted military leaders. "It's me," Aiden replied. "I need immediate clearance to Earth's main stronghold." And Tessa, prepare the others. We're at war. The hidden stronghold. Humanity's main base, codenamed Sanctuary, was hidden within the fractured remains of a shattered moon orbiting a gas giant. From the outside, it appeared as nothing more than a lifeless husk, but beneath its surface lay a fortress of innovation and resilience. As Aiden's ship approached, massive energy fields shimmered, temporarily deactivating to allow him entry. The hangar bay buzzed with activity, engineers tending to experimental ships, soldiers preparing for deployment, and analysts poring over intercepted data from the Galactic Council. Tessa was waiting as Aiden disembarked, her sharp gaze scanning him for injuries. "You look like hell," she said, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "But I'm glad you're alive." "Barely," Aiden replied. "The Council didn't just attack me, they tried to erase humanity. We need to strike back." Aiden's revelation. In the war room, Aiden stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. It displayed the Council's vast territories, their supply lines, and their key installations. Around the table sat humanity's top strategists, engineers, and military leaders, all waiting for Aiden to speak. "They think we're weak," Aiden began, his voice steady, but carrying the weight of his anger. "They think they can destroy us without consequence, but they've forgotten who we are." He paused, letting the silence drive his words home. "We've spent decades preparing for this moment, advancing in secret, innovating under their radar. And now we have the tools to fight back." Tessa stepped forward, activating a series of holograms. "We've reverse-engineered alien technology from every encounter we've had. Cloaking devices, energy weapons, adaptive shielding. Our ships might not be as big or as numerous as theirs, but they're faster, smarter, and more versatile." The birth of the plan. Aiden's plan was bold, bordering on reckless, but it was precisely the kind of strategy humanity had excelled at throughout its history. Instead of engaging the Council in a direct war, they would dismantle its power structure from within. The key was striking where the Council least expected it, at the heart of their infrastructure. "We'll target their supply chains first," Aiden explained, pointing to key nodes on the map. "Fuel depots, communication hubs, and transport routes. Disrupt their ability to sustain their fleets." Tessa nodded, "And while they're scrambling to recover, we hit their command centers. Sow confusion, feed them false intel, and turn their own systems against them." Aiden's gaze hardened. "And when they're at their weakest, we strike their core. The Council must be dismantled, not just for humanity, but for every species they've oppressed. Rallying the resistance. As preparations began, Aiden sent out a message across the galaxy, encrypted and directed to the leaders of other species who had suffered under the Council's rule. His message was simple but powerful. The time for fear is over. Join us, and together we will break the chains of oppression. The response was overwhelming. Species that had once viewed humanity with skepticism now saw them as a beacon of hope. Smugglers, rebels, and defectors flocked to Sanctuary, bringing with them ships, resources, and invaluable intelligence. Among the arrivals was Callan, a Norexian warrior with bioluminescent markings and a reputation for leading successful insurgencies. He approached Aiden with a warrior's respect. "Your fight is our fight," Callan said, his deep voice resonating in the chamber. "The Council has taken too much from all of us." Humanity's new arsenal. Deep within Sanctuary, engineers worked tirelessly to refine humanity's new technologies. One of the most groundbreaking developments was the Neural Command Interface, NCI, a system that allowed pilots to control their ships as if they were extensions of their own bodies. Combined with cloaking devices and adaptive weapon systems, it gave humanity a fighting chance against the Council's superior numbers. Aiden visited the engineering bay, where Chief Engineer Mira Vasquez was overseeing the final tests on a fleet of stealth fighters. "These aren't just ships," Mira explained, her eyes gleaming with pride. "They're symbiotic machines, designed to react faster than any organic pilot could. The Council won't know what hit them." Aiden nodded, his resolve strengthening. "Good, because we're going to need every advantage we can get." The first strike. With their fleet prepared and their allies rallied, humanity launched its first operation. Aiden led the mission personally, his Titan abilities giving him an edge in planning and execution. Their target was a heavily fortified fuel depot orbiting a dying star, a critical node in the Council's supply chain. The mission began with a coordinated assault by cloaked fighters, their stealth systems allowing them to bypass the depot's defenses. Aiden's team infiltrated the station, planting charges on key systems while sowing chaos among the defenders. As the charges detonated, the depot erupted in a fiery explosion, the shockwave visible for light years. The Council's fleet, left without a critical fuel supply, was forced to retreat, buying humanity precious time. The Council's response. News of the attack spread quickly, and the Galactic Council was thrown into disarray. Their leaders convened in emergency sessions, their confidence shaken. "They've turned our own technology against us," one member growled, slamming their clawed hand on the table. "How is this possible?" Shar, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "This isn't just humanity we're facing. It's him, the Titan, and if we don't adapt, he'll tear us apart." Zorro, still nursing his wounds from his encounter with Aiden, snarled. "Then we crush him. No more politics. No more diplomacy. We send everything we have." The tide begins to turn. Back at Sanctuary, the mood was triumphant but focused. The success of the first strike had galvanized the resistance, but Aiden knew the fight was far from over. The Council would respond with overwhelming force, and humanity needed to stay one step ahead. As he stood on the observation deck, watching the fleet prepare for its next mission, Tessa joined him. "You've done something incredible, Aiden," she said. "You've given people hope." Aiden's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "Hope is only the beginning," he said. "Now we need to finish what we started." The Council's downfall. The Galactic Council sat in emergency session within their fortified capital on the ancient world of Xenor Prime. The once gilded chamber, a symbol of unity and authority, was now filled with tension and fear. Holographic projections of their disrupted supply lines, destroyed depots, and fractured command networks hovered before them. The human strikes were surgical, relentless, and impossibly precise. Zero slammed his scaled fist against the table, his voice reverberating across the chamber. We underestimated them. This Titan, this Aiden Cross, is no mere diplomat. He's turned the galaxy against us. Shar, seated calmly in her throne, steepled her elongated fingers. It's not just him. It's their ingenuity, their adaptability. They've taken our technologies and used them more effectively than we ever imagined. A ripple of uneasy agreement moved through the council members. For the first time in millennia, the council faced an enemy they could not predict, could not control. The plan for the core strike. Back at Sanctuary, Aiden stood in the war room, the holographic map of the council's territories glowing before him. The human-led resistance had achieved a series of victories, but he knew the council was far from defeated. They were regrouping, consolidating their forces to protect their most valuable asset, the council core, the hub of their entire political and military operation. Tessa leaned against the edge of the table, her sharp eyes scanning the map. They're expecting us to strike their outer systems again. What if we hit the core instead? Aiden nodded. Exactly. They'll fortify their fleets around the mid-tier planets, thinking we'll keep dismantling their infrastructure. But if we bypass their defenses and strike at the heart, we can end this. Kellen, the Norexian warrior, stepped forward. The core is a fortress. Even with your Titan abilities, it won't be easy. That's why we're not going head-on, Aiden replied. We'll divide their forces, sabotage their defenses from within, and deliver the final blow when they're vulnerable. Rallying the resistance. To execute the plan, Aiden and his team called on every ally they had gathered across the galaxy. Messages were sent to rebel groups, defecting council soldiers, and oppressed species still recovering from the council's iron grip. Aiden addressed the assembled leaders via hologram, his voice steady and commanding. This isn't just humanity's fight. The council has ruled through fear and oppression for too long. Together, we can dismantle the systems that keep them in power. Together, we can build something better. The responses were overwhelming. Fleets from dozens of systems pledged their support, their ships converging on Sanctuary in preparation for the assault. The sight of the combined forces, a tapestry of species united under one cause, rekindled hope across the galaxy. The infiltration begins. The first phase of the operation began with infiltration. Aiden and his team, disguised as traders, slipped aboard a supply vessel bound for Xenor Prime. The planet's defenses were formidable. Orbital platforms armed with plasma cannons, fleets of heavily armored frigates, and automated drone swarms patrolling the skies. Using cloak devices developed at Sanctuary, Aiden's team bypassed the initial security layers. As they approached the council core, a towering spire surrounded by energy fields, they launched a series of EMP charges to disable the perimeter defenses. The sky above Xenor Prime lit up with bursts of static electricity, sending the drones spiraling out of control. Phase 1 complete, Tessa reported through the comms. Proceeding to Phase 2. Sabotage from within. Inside the core, chaos erupted as power systems failed and alarms blared. Council guards scrambled to secure vital systems, unaware that Aiden's team had already infiltrated the lower levels. Using blueprints obtained from defectors, they moved with precision, planting charges on key infrastructure points. Aiden led the charge, his Titan abilities giving him an edge in navigating the core's labyrinthine corridors. He deflected plasma bolts with his energy blade, neutralizing guards with calculated efficiency. The others followed close behind, disabling surveillance systems and rerouting security protocols. We've planted the charges, Kellen said, his bioluminescent markings glowing faintly in the dim light. What's next? Aiden's gaze was resolute. We force their hand. The council fractures. Above the planet, the resistance fleet launched a full-scale assault. Ships of every size and design emerged from hyperspace, their weapons blazing as they engaged the council's defensive fleets. The council's forces, spread thin from recent losses, struggled to maintain formation. Inside the core, the council members watched in horror as their defenses crumbled. Cher turned to Zorro, her voice sharp. "This is your fault. You insisted on underestimating them." Zorro snarled, his claws gripping the edge of the table. "They're just humans. They can't possibly." His words were cut short by a massive explosion that rocked the core. The lights flickered, and a deep rumble echoed through the chamber. "What's happening?" Shar demanded. An aide rushed in, his face pale. "The humans. They've breached the inner sanctum." The confrontation. Aiden and his team burst into the council's central chamber, their weapons drawn. The remaining guards hesitated, their confidence shattered by the destruction unfolding around them. Aiden stepped forward, his energy blade casting a pale light across the room. "This ends now," he said, his voice cold and unwavering. Shar stood, her expression a mix of fear and defiance. "You think this will solve anything? If you destroy us, the galaxy will descend into chaos." Aiden met her gaze. "The galaxy is already in chaos because of you, but we'll build something better." Zorro roared and charged, his massive frame barreling toward Aiden. The Titan met him head-on, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. The battle was brutal, but Aiden's strength and precision overwhelmed the reptilian brute. With a final strike, Zorro fell, his defeat symbolizing the collapse of the Council's authority. The core's fall. As the charges detonated, the Council core began to collapse, its towering spire crumbling under the weight of the explosions. Aiden's team escaped aboard a resistance ship, watching from orbit as the once mighty symbol of galactic power was reduced to rubble. The Council's fleets, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Across the galaxy, news of the core's destruction spread like wildfire, inspiring rebellions on countless worlds. A new dawn. Back at Sanctuary, the mood was jubilant. The Resistance had achieved the impossible, dismantling the Galactic Council and freeing the oppressed species under its rule. Aiden, however, remained somber. He stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Tessa approached, her expression soft. "You should celebrate. You've done something incredible." Aiden shook his head. "This isn't the end. It's the beginning. Now we have to ensure what we've built doesn't fall apart." As the galaxy began to rebuild, Aiden's name became a symbol of hope, his story passed down as a legend. But for Aiden, the fight was never about glory. It was about giving humanity, and the galaxy, a second chance, a new galactic order. The galactic map shimmered before Aiden Cross as he stood in Sanctuary's war room. It no longer displayed the old dominion of the Galactic Council, but a patchwork of newly liberated territories. Each glowing sector represented a world freed from the Council's iron grip, a testament to the Resistance's efforts. Yet the victory felt hollow to Aiden. Winning a war was one thing, building a future was something else entirely. Behind him, Commander Tessa Grayson entered the room, her expression equal parts relief and concern. "The Council is fractured," she began. "Its fleets are scattered, its core leadership dismantled, but the galaxy is far from stable." Aiden nodded, his gaze fixed on the map. "This was always the hardest part," he said. "Victory creates a void, and voids breed chaos. A galaxy in transition." Across the galaxy, the fall of the Galactic Council had unleashed a wave of rebellions. On some worlds, oppressed species celebrated their newfound freedom, dismantling council structures and reclaiming their sovereignty. On others, power vacuums led to infighting, with factions vying for control. The Resistance had sparked a revolution, but it was clear the galaxy's wounds would not heal overnight. Messages poured into Sanctuary from liberated worlds, each one a mixture of gratitude and pleas for help. Some asked for guidance, others for protection from opportunistic warlords. The sheer scale of the challenge was overwhelming. Callan, the Norexian warrior, stepped into the room, his bioluminescent markings dimmed with fatigue. "We've inspired them, Aiden," he said. "But inspiration isn't enough. They need leadership." Aiden turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "And that's exactly what we need to give them. The Alliance Council. To prevent the galaxy from descending into chaos, Aiden proposed the formation of a new governing body, the Alliance Council. Unlike the old Galactic Council, this would not be a tool of domination, but a platform for cooperation. Every species, no matter its size or power, would have an equal voice. The idea was ambitious, and not everyone agreed. Some factions, wary of centralized authority, resisted the proposal. Others, scared by centuries of council oppression, were skeptical of humanity's intentions. Tessa addressed these concerns during the council's inaugural meeting. "This isn't about power," she said. "It's about ensuring no one else suffers under tyranny. We've all paid the price for the old system. Now it's time to build something better." The council chambers, located on a neutral moon, filled with representatives from dozens of species. Among them were former resistance leaders, defected council officials, and newly empowered planetary governors. Despite their differences, they shared a common goal: to forge a galaxy where oppression had no place. Aiden's dilemma. As the Alliance Council began to take shape, Aiden found himself increasingly at odds with his own role. He had been a warrior, a diplomat, and a leader of the resistance. But now, with peace on the horizon, he questioned where he fit in this new order. One evening, Tessa found him on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "You've been quiet," she said. Aiden sighed, his shoulders heavy with the weight of his thoughts. "I've spent my life fighting, first as a Titan, then as a diplomat, and now as a revolutionary. But I'm not a builder, Tessa. This galaxy needs architects, not warriors." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe. But it also needs symbols, people who remind us what we're fighting for." Aiden looked at her, his expression softening. "Maybe. But I think my time in the spotlight is over." A test of unity. The newly formed Alliance Council faced its first major challenge when a rogue fleet of former Council loyalists launched an attack on a liberated system. The fleet, led by a fanatical commander named Vorka, sought to restore the old order by force. Aiden, though reluctant to return to combat, knew the Alliance's response would set the tone for its future. "If we don't act decisively," he told the Council, "everything we fought for will unravel." Under his guidance, the Alliance assembled a joint task force composed of ships from multiple species. It was a show of unity, a declaration that the galaxy would no longer bow to tyrants. The battle was fierce, with Vorka's fleet using old Council strategies to outmaneuver the Alliance. But the combined forces of humanity and its allies proved too strong. Aiden, piloting one of the lead ships, directed the battle with precision, his Titan instincts ensuring victory. As Vorka's flagship was disabled, the rogue fleet surrendered. The Alliance Council's resolve had been tested and proven. A new beginning. With the threat of Vorka's loyalists neutralized, the Alliance Council gained credibility. Systems that had been hesitant to join now pledged their allegiance, recognizing the strength of unity. Back on Sanctuary, the mood was one of cautious optimism. Engineers worked to repair damaged ships, diplomats forged new alliances, and civilians began to dream of a future free from fear. Aiden, however, remained restless. One day, as the Council convened to discuss its next steps, Aiden stood before them. "My work here is done," he announced, his voice steady but tinged with finality. "The galaxy has its new order, and it no longer needs me." There were murmurs of protest, but Aiden raised a hand to silence them. "This isn't goodbye. I'll always be watching, ready to step in if I'm needed, but it's time for others to lead." The Forgotten Titan. Aiden left Sanctuary quietly, boarding a small, unmarked ship. His destination was unknown, even to those closest to him. Some said he returned to Earth to live a quiet life. Others believed he ventured into the uncharted reaches of space, seeking peace among the stars. Legends of the Forgotten Titan began to spread across the galaxy. To some, he was a savior. To others, a warning of humanity's resilience. Statues were erected in his honor, and songs were sung of his bravery. But Aiden himself remained a mystery, a shadowy figure who had shaped the galaxy's future before disappearing into its depths. A galaxy reborn. Under the Alliance Council's guidance, the galaxy began to heal. Trade routes reopened, scientific advancements flourished, and old rivalries gave way to cooperation. The scars of the Galactic Council's tyranny remained, but they were a reminder of what could be achieved through unity and determination. And though Aiden Cross was no longer there to guide them, his influence lingered in every decision, every act of courage, and every step toward a better future.